You are listening to the Underground Voices Network. You will be hearing unfiltered truth from voices living the news.
I'm Stephen Enada. My country of origin, birth is Nigeria. And then a lot of people will ask me, what do I do? What I do is, I'm a missionary. That is what I tell people, and that explains what I do better. Missionary, communicating the intention of God for humanity. That is the primary focus. But also doing that, you come across injustice, you come across human depravity in different areas of life, from diseases to war to conflict. So that broke my heart. Mm-hmm. And I started reflecting, asking God what God wants me to do. And because of this, I plunged into advocacy work. So I started off in Nigeria trying to make sure oppressed voices are heard. And oftentimes they go unreported. But also, you begin to look at it that I come from a community in Benue State when just one night, over 500 women, children were killed. Oh. That was horrendous. That was really, really a gory sight for everybody. Wow. So I started asking myself, what will I do? And that is just one community in many communities that may have affected by crisis. And then this one is actually an assault on people. And also, I started actually by even helping from my background. Actually, my educational background actually is on religion and theology. And in Fula, I did global leadership. But that said, my focus is actually how are we going to add value to humanity, actually using biblical worldview. And that doesn't come with any sentiment, because God's plan for humanity is for humanity to know their purpose and to do His will. Amen. So that doesn't mean we discriminate against people who don't necessarily hold our view or creed. So I started off like that, and I also started advocating for retirees whose rights were denied in Nigeria through a platform. And also I started talking about mobilizing resources for victims of mass atrocities in the middle belt of Nigeria, and speaking on their behalf, raising support for them. Now, when I discovered that this existential threat about terrorism and Fulani militants in the middle belt of Nigeria became so overt, and there seems not to be solution in sight, I traveled to the United States to engage Washington, D.C. policy space from international diplomatic dimension. And that is to begin to, with a couple of friends, we started what we call International Committee on Nigeria, ICON. And this actually is to highlight the existential threat, atrocities committed in Nigeria, and to see how international community will speak to these issues, and also to be able to bring perpetrators to justice. So this has been going on in the last 4 years of consistent engagement in Washington, D.C., and also we are engaging in the United Kingdom. Principally, our focus is on Nigeria, but now we also begin to discover that not just Nigeria, Christians are also victims in Niger, in Cameroon, in Chad, and in some part of Mali. So now, yes, as much as you hear International Committee on Nigeria, it is actually international, because we are also trying to address issues of religious intolerance, violence, terrorism in this corridor, what we call the Lake Chad region.
What kind of response are you getting in D.C.?
Yes, it started off by trying to, first of all, mobilize the diasporan Nigerians in the United States who are actually citizens of the United States to speak to their Congress men and also their senators about issues happening in Nigeria, and to also understand their civic responsibility as U.S. citizens and also as Nigerians who are actually lucky to be in the United States. So what has happened, I did mobilization in Texas, in North Carolina, in New Jersey, and in several other places in the United States by bringing to their awareness, because most of them also don't actually understand what is happening in Nigeria. So now we try to educate them, we try to let them know about the atrocities going on in Nigeria. So now from there, we started working with some congressmen and also with some senators to highlight this problem to them. And then from there, we've had some congressional hearings on Boko Haram and Fulani militant. We've worked closely with Atlanta's Human Rights Commission here in DC. We've worked with some congressmen like Ron Estes, like Goose Bilarikis, like Congressman Chris Smith, and also former Congressman Frank Wolf. And this actually has brought the issue in Nigeria to the fore. And then a lot of people started engaging, and we've really made some inroad by also engaging USAF, that is United States Commission for International Religious Freedom, where we are able to work hard to make sure Nigeria is designated as country of particular concern, CPC. And this time around, we are adding to that also it should be designated with the consequent entities of particular concern, like the Boko Haram, Fulani militants, and other state actors that disrupt democratic institutions in Nigeria. So we do that, and then lately we started also campaigning for U.S. President to appoint a special envoy to Nigeria and Lake Chad region, because we discovered that if this doesn't happen, we need some kind of an individual who will oversee to these issues in Nigeria, and such person should have some requisite authority of U.S. President, like what happened in Sudan when President Bush sent Senator John Danforth as an envoy to Sudan. We saw that something happened. And when U.S. institutions, U.S. government, because we know the religious freedom is actually one of the flagship foreign policy of this current administration. And so we are promoting via that instrument to promote religious freedom, because when you talk about social hostility in Nigeria, it is second to Syria. So that is just to tell us that Nigeria is actually imploding when it comes to religious freedom. And the existential threat is huge, and we need to act, and that is what we are doing.
So how do you stay motivated when news media and general public seem to have no knowledge or interest in what's going on?
Yeah, I keep on telling people that, first of all, before I even blame the media, I have to also blame myself, that am I doing enough to share information? Because sometimes it's all about interest. So you need to connect with different interests to argue your case, because there are a lot of competing interests, especially in the international scene. And then you begin to see how even some communities deploy, some nations deploy even some kind of lobbies to actually advocate for them. Even you have some rogue nations being represented here in Washington, D.C., trying to make sure they give some kind of positive representation of their country before the world. So now, yes, we begin to I discover so much that, first of all, you begin to engage and speak out and make a compelling case on behalf of the vulnerable affected. But the truth of the matter is also that the forces Christians or Christianity is fighting against is so huge, and sometimes they have some kind of influence on the media. And then you begin to look at it that there is always a pushback because there is also, as much as there is some level of pushbacks, there are also naivety with most of us who are advocating, because we think sometimes if you cry, if you emotionalize your issues, you think people will respond, but that is not the case. The case is that you need to out evidence, out argue, even the perpetrators who are competing against you in international community. And by way of what you are doing, you are trying to communicate to the world that, look, Nigeria is bedeviled with two deadly terrorist groups in the world. According to Terrorism Index report, 2018, Nigeria is home to Boko Haram and also fledgling Fulani militants, decimating Nigeria population. Lot of humanitarian crisis witnessed. Over 2 million displaced individuals living in their country. No access to water, healthcare, education. So that this is actually a threat. Like and I keep on telling my US audience especially that, well, as much as people of good conscience should speak and rise up to make sure something is being done, also US also stands to be impacted negatively. If Nigeria implodes, we have over 200 million people. Nigeria implodes, it will overrun Africa. US interests will be impacted. And not just that, if a nation like Nigeria is overrun by terrorist groups, then what it means, US is just one plane away from Nigeria. And so US Homeland Security is in jeopardy, because it's good to prevent than to allow it to happen, because the cost of trying to stop this crisis when it implodes is going to be astronomical, and that is what I keep on telling people. And then secondly, China, who is competing economically in Africa against the United States, thrives on when there is crisis. So now Nigeria fragility is actually a good one for China to take over economically. If US is interested, and US through USAID last year gave Africa $16 billion, and of that $1 billion went to Nigeria. So now the question now is, if US is supporting in both military and economic aid, then she has moral right to ask Nigeria leaders to do what is right. So these are areas US should see Nigeria problem as a problem. And also, when we refer to the United States as a model for democracy. So, and you have democratic institutions being weakened in Nigeria by this element. So I think it's incumbent on the United States government to act. And you talk about religious freedom of others. So now it's been imparted, it's been disrupted. So now these are actually complex issues, but we keep on saying we need to speak out. And when we speak out, media will be able to pick it. In the past, they don't usually report Nigeria. They are trying to do a little of it, but we begin to come with narrative, not skewed narrative. A narrative that is sincere, that is provable, that is not giving one just side of that story, because we want people to trust what we say.
Right.
Just don't want to falsify evidence.
Right. Well, Stephen, can you tell us a few things that's going on right now that we can help share the word about?
Yes, Nigeria right now is really, really, first of all, Nigeria is deeply divided than ever along religious, regional, and ethnic fault lines. And this has actually given birth to distrust. People don't trust themselves. And when there is no trust in a nation like Nigeria, in a complex nation like Nigeria with over 500 languages, then you begin to look at it. How on earth are you going to bring about unity? How are you going to develop a nation like that? So now that has, first of all, there was a general election that was held in Nigeria, which is still being contested by the opposition party. But from there, we have a crisis, economic crisis, as a result of illegal mining in Zamfara State, where over 300 people had been killed in the last 3 months. Then in the middle belt of Nigeria, farmers are constantly being attacked. And then we've recorded in the last 3 years over 7,000 deaths. And it's still ongoing. We have a huge humanitarian crisis in Plateau, in Kaduna, in Taraba, and in Benue. The killings are not going. And then the tragedy from this is that, one, government is not protecting vulnerable Nigerians from being killed. And now that is ongoing, and is a sort of, it has been normalized. Killings in Nigeria has been normalized. And that is just the unfortunate experience we are having. So as I'm telling you now, in Kaduna State, Kajuru village, in the last 3 weeks, had been consistently pummeled by these elements. And now we begin to ask the questions, what is going to happen? Nigeria is imploding. People are dying. Children are out of school. Women are being raped and trafficked as a result of this crisis. This humanitarian crisis has really impacted life, economic activities, and then poverty increasing per capita each day as a result of this.
What can we do to help as far as the general public, and how can we help the humanitarian situation with you and the efforts that you're doing?
Yes. First of all, from Christians' perspective, we need prayer. Because everything, God is in control, is in charge of his creation. So we know
Amen.
that he can actually bring about peace in our nation, Nigeria. Then secondly, we'll want opportunity to speak to American audience, especially in churches, to be able to educate them about what is going on in Nigeria and how also they can contribute to this plight. So an icon is working with different organizations on ground in Nigeria, and we have identified some project to do. So now you are talking about some conflict zones where people are hungry, people don't have access to health. So we need to mobilize humanitarian aid to support these vulnerable Nigerians.
Is there any resistance to humanitarian aid when it comes in? Is it guaranteed to get to where it's supposed to go, or is there pirates? I mean, we don't know.
Yes, what in overtly conflict zone that crisis is still happening, we advise that people don't risk their lives until maybe something is done. But we know there are several locations, IDPs, internally displaced people, who actually we know and we work with. And one thing is that we have designed a concept, we call it citizen-to-citizen diplomacy, where somebody like you can be in direct contact with a particular victim on phone to speak and encourage and pray with such person. Mm-hmm. So now it's not a matter of, we actually will make sure any support is not mismanaged, any support is not misdirected, and it is not lost, but it goes to the victim. And that we try to make sure we put whoever is going to support in any way in contact with the direct community, and so to make sure there is accountability, transparency, and nothing is lost. And ICON, with other partners on ground in Nigeria, has tried as much as possible to make sure we don't we are not caught in that cycle of people trying to contribute people try to support and things are not going to victims. So we have designed some kind of methodology that can convey all those assistance to victims directly.
Is there anything else you want the general public to know today before we end this this session? I know your time is very valuable, and we really appreciate it. And I hope that anytime you have some news, that you and I can talk, and you can get the news out, and we'll get the news out. We'd love to once a week, once every 2 weeks. Anytime there's something that you really feel is we want this out there, please get in touch with me.
Yeah, can I introduce you to one of my colleagues who is here also?
Absolutely, yes.
So, and he can speak to that. Kyle, please come. Yeah, what we are just saying, Nigeria is in a dire situation, and we need every concerned global citizens to engage either through ICON or ask us how they can actually engage with Nigerians who are hurting. And on this, I will be also sharing with you some information that we have about all these issues happening so that you have real life, day-to-day issues happening in Nigeria. And that will inform the general public about what is happening in Nigeria. So now I introduce you, Kyle. This is Kyle.
Kyle. Hey, Kyle. Good to meet you.
Sir. Good.
Yeah. Kyle was a missionary to Nigeria, and he spent 16 years of his life in Nigeria. So now I and Kyle has been working on a couple of projects, and every time we try to make sure we address all these social issues confronting Nigerians. And now I and Kyle are driving ICON. We have other people working with us, but Kai has been so effective because he understands what is happening in Nigeria.
Right.
So, yeah. So he can actually speak briefly to that also, Kai.
I mean, I've been living there and I've been working with Steven, so I don't know what else.
Well, maybe there's times that if you do, you as well, I invite you, if you have something that you want to say to the world, that we can just be another outlet for you. Love to, you have I'll make sure you have my information.
Right.
And we just want to be another outlet for people to get word out.
No, it's great. I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's the perception of Nigeria is not good. Obviously, there's scams and other things, but then
right. I have heard that a lot.
So that there's definitely bad images of Nigeria getting out, and we want to correct that as well as help people that are trying to live daily. Especially Christians that are being persecuted and killed. So.
We're very grateful that you guys are there. I'm sure you're at risk at some point, right? With what you do. Do you ever feel like you're at risk?
Well, every time we step into the country, so you always wonder, but God protects and God provides, and we just keep going. So,
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and please,
my great Jennifer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yes.
Well, guys, God bless you. Please stay in touch.
Yes.
And let us know anything we can do to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.